a small getaway, an escape. That's all our main character, Tom, is looking for right now. He believes he'll find what he's looking for by going to the island of Janice. When he expresses this wish to his potential employer, Mr. Coughlin, the latter warns him about the current state of the island. But Tom knows what he's in for. In fact, he's been through worse in the recent war. Mr. Coughlin lays out the conditions, highlighting the fact that Tom is a single man. Having a wife and kids would be a great advantage in a remote island like Janice. But since it will only be temporary, Mr. Coughlin agrees to Tom's request. And with a final stamp on his paper, Tom is sent off to Janice as a lighthouse worker. As the sun rises from beyond the horizon, Tom sets off to the aforementioned island. The train arrives at the ship port, where Tom watches a woman feed the birds. The place is quiet, almost somber. He makes his way to the house of Captain Hasluck, who is a prominent figure on the island. He introduces Tom to Bill as the new lightkeeper. It seems that Tom has stumbled upon a gathering of affluent people, if Bill's words are anything to go by. The man tells Tom about the importance of his new job, highlighting the economic importance of the ships he'll be guiding from his post. They can use any penny they can get after the war they have just suffered. Before Bill can continue, his daughter, Isabel, turns up. Her attitude is surprisingly chipper, and she quickly whisks away the dreary atmosphere that the group carried. Dinner has begun, and Bill is now telling Tom about Janice. His work post will have Tom secluded, with the nearest person being 100 miles away. They mention Trimble, the man who previously held Tom's new temporary position. The conversation takes on an air of mystery upon this, with Tom wondering why the man had to leave his job for 6 months. The truth doesn't stay hidden for long. Trimble worked at the lighthouse for 6 years with not a single scratch. One day, he reported that his wife was signaling the passing ships. This was scandalous for 2 reasons. First, signaling passing ships was forbidden. Second, his wife has not been alive for 2 years. The captain tries to dismiss the happening as a simple case of cabin fever, but Bill insists that this should have been disclosed to Tom before he signed the contract. But Tom takes the news in stride, simply wishing that Trimble has a swift recovery. He's sure he won't succumb to the same fate. He enjoys his solitude, craves it even. After dinner ends, Tom sets off to Janice. He's now made his way to the island, where the cold and lonely tone the place has taken on can be felt through the screen. It's finally setting in for Tom. He'll be here, alone, for 6 whole months. He makes it through the night peacefully, and by the morning, he's already fully immersed in the role. Tom takes notes of his day, cooks himself breakfast, and saws down wood for his fireplace. He even takes some time out of his day to say a prayer. The island is deserted, but the beauty of the landscape almost makes up for it. Nevertheless, Tom holds up pretty well, and before he knows it, 3 months have passed. He's in great shape, a fact his visitors take note of. They've come to take him back to Captain Hasluck, who wants to have a meeting with him. He makes it there swiftly, and Hasluck tells him some bad news. They expected Trimble to be on a path of swift recovery, but to everyone's shock, the man took. In light of this development, they offer Tom a 3-year contract as the lightkeeper. Before we can find out if Tom has accepted the position, he goes to Bill's house. He greets Bill's wife with a bouquet of flowers, telling her about the job offer. Isabel watches the exchange, and later during lunch, she watches her parents engage in conversation with him. Out of nowhere, she lies and tells them Tom has offered to take her on a picnic tomorrow. If he won't shoot his shot, she will. On their picnic, Tom tells her about what it's like to work at the lighthouse. Tom isn't the talkative type, but he doesn't pass up his opportunity to flirt with Isabel. Their conversation flows smoothly, with Isabel telling Tom about her family history. She lost her 2 brothers in the war, and the loss has been hard on them all. She even wonders if she can call herself a sister, now that her brothers are gone. Tom shares his experience in the war too, telling her that it's caused his feet to go numb. She appreciates the joke, but she wants to know about him on a more personal level. She discovers that he lost his mother, and his relationship with his father is rocky at best. It made things easier for him, he says, knowing that no one would miss him if he was gone. Isabel doesn't like the dark tone the conversation has taken on, so she urges him to talk about the future. The only thing Tom can say regarding that topic is that he wishes for the future to hold life. At that, Isabel asks to come to Janice with him. She'll have to marry him if she wants to do that, Tom says. And to his delight, she tells him to marry her. Her request is denied, but as they walk back home, Tom promises to write to her. He's back on Janice, but this time, he looks at the ocean with a longing that wasn't there before. He keeps his promise, writing her letters about how he misses her. He admits to being numb to life after the war, spilling out his deepest regrets and fears. She is so full of life it scares him. He feels as though it will fade away if he dares get close to her. Despite the heavy words, Isabel is elated to read his letter. By the end of it, she's full of love and appreciation for the man and his openness. She encourages him to move past the darkness and into the light. The pair exchange letters daily, their affection for each other only growing. Along the way, he agrees to her proposal for marriage. She picks out a wedding dress with a bright smile on her face, and Tom makes his way to her to commence their wedding. The wedding day is sunny and beautiful, as is the speech Bill gives about the pairing. The two are glad to have his approval, to say the least. After their celebration, Isabel and Tom quickly depart to Janice. She is in awe of the gorgeous sights the island holds. She's even more in awe of the piano that sits in the living room. She's a bit apprehensive of the new place at first, but the night the two share afterwards cements their love for each other. By morning, Tom and Isabel are as happy as ever. Their life is beautiful, just the two of them on the magnificent island. Bill was right about the comfort and happiness she could provide for him. The month of January was named after Janus, the god, who the island is also named after, Tom tells Isabel. He's got two faces, looking both ways, torn between which way to focus on. The month looks ahead as the beginning of the year, but it also looks behind as the end of it. The island is the same, looking in the direction of two different oceans. Isabel wishes their baby will be as intelligent as Tom, revealing her pregnancy. The weather is troublesome today. The tide crashes against the shore heavily, and the wind blows in every direction. Isabel will be safe from the storm as long as she stays inside, Tom promises. But he has to go and tend to the lighthouse. But the night doesn't go as planned. Isabel is dealing with extreme pregnancy pains. As she clasps at the sink in pain, she calls for Tom. But she knows he won't answer. The pain is too much for her to handle, it seems. She climbs up the long flight of stairs to the lighthouse, uncaring of the heavy storm hitting her body, and bangs on the door of the lighthouse. But the door is too far and the storm is too loud for Tom to hear her desperate bangs. By morning, when Tom makes his way out of the building, he finds Isabel on the floor. They've lost the baby. Tom tries his best to comfort her in her grief, but Isabel is despondent. She rejects his offer to call for a doctor to treat her. When she finds that he called one despite her wishes, she's beyond angry. The grief, coupled with the seclusion of the island, is slowly but surely getting to her, it seems. When she storms inside, she finds a man fixing the piano for her, and she appreciates the gesture despite everything. She realizes that Tom didn't call a doctor behind her back, after all, and her trust and love for him slowly creeps its way back into her heart. She falls pregnant again, and this time, she makes it further along her term with Tom's full support. One day, as she's playing the piano, she feels the baby move. It's too early, and Isabel is scared out of her mind because of it, but Tom tries his best to help. But there was nothing they could do. They lose another baby, less than a year after losing their first one. As Isabel lays down on the grass near their grave, putting her ear to the ground, she hears something that shocks her to her core. It's the sound of a baby wailing. As Tom cleans the windows of the lighthouse, he sees a boat crashing against the rocks. The two quickly make their way to the vessel, where they make a miraculous discovery. Inside the boat is a baby and a man, the latter deceased. Isabel is quickly taken by the new addition to their island. She's clearly taken a liking to the baby girl as though she was her own. She tells Tom of her wishes to keep the baby, at least for a little while. Tom knows how happy she is with her, but he's obligated to file a report. After some convincing, he agrees to push the report until next morning. When the next morning comes, he can't go through with it. He can't take Isabel's newfound hope and happiness away. But enough is enough, and after some time, he makes his way to the lighthouse to send out a signal. Isabel tries to stop him, telling him that it's fate that the baby ended up with them. He isn't having any of it. It's not their baby, no matter how much she wishes it was. She argues that they can claim that the baby is theirs, because she was expecting. When Tom brings up the deceased man on the boat, she says they don't have to tell anyone about him. Tom is baffled at her suggestions. It's his duty to abide by the rules as a lighthouse keeper. Isabel almost begs for Tom to let them keep the baby, but he stands firm in his decision. He tries to tell her they can adopt the baby after filing the report, but Isabel knows the approval for that would never go through. Isabel wouldn't be able to stand seeing the baby being shipped off to an orphanage. By the end of their conversation, Tom gives in. He gives the man a proper burial and skips on the report. As he goes to put the boat back into the ocean, he finds a peculiar object, an owl rattle, on the wooden planks. He takes his final step in the matter by removing the cross off one of the graves that he's made for his children. The gesture is dreadful. They have visitors today. The men greet the couple and Lucy, the baby, warmly. The older man, Ralph, asks her about the delivery, and she lies through her teeth about it. The other man, Blue Eye, takes a liking to Lucy, playing with the owl rattle. The months pass by quickly, and the two do their best to raise Lucy. The pair soon visit Isabel's parents, who are enamored by the child. Lucy is healthy and talkative, fortunately. Later, as the family waits outside a locked church, Tom makes his way through a graveyard. He finds a woman, dressed in all black, tending to a grave. After watching her depart, he walks up to where the woman was. He finds a gravestone on a fresh new patch of dirt. The recently deceased owner of the grave was lost at sea, it writes. Tom is shocked at this discovery. It doesn't take him long to put two and two together. This gravestone is dedicated to the man who washed up on that boat with Lucy. He looks up at the sky, tears in his eyes, finally coming face to face with the reality of his actions' consequences. The church is finally open. It's Lucy's baptism, but Tom's shame is weighing too heavy on his mind for him to enjoy it. Bill notices, and Tom tells him about the new gravestone he saw. Bill tells him of an occurrence that happened a couple of years ago. Apparently, a rich lady named Hannah married a German man named Frank and had a child. Her father cut out contact with her after that, and the pair were by some locals over it. They rowed away from the place on a boat shortly after, but the man and child were whisked away by the water. Later that night at his in-laws' house, Tom still hasn't let the issue go. We see him walk to the graveyard, but we don't yet know what he does there. They depart to Janice anyway, having no choice but to fulfill his contract. Tom can't forget the sight of the woman, Hannah, crying over her grave. We see her there on another day. This time, she walks over to the mailbox, where she finds a letter. The letter, which states that the baby is safe and well, shocks the woman. It also informs her of her husband's passing. She immediately reports it to Captain Hasluck, but he says they don't have enough information for a full-scale investigation. She spends the next day ruminating over the letter. She visits a library where she picks up a poetry book. She's taking matters into her own hands to find her daughter. Meanwhile, Tom and Isabel are busy with Lucy. Tom knows Lucy's real mother is alive and missing her child, but it seems that he's pushed it back to the recesses of his mind. Isabel's early childhood is happy and eventful, despite the lack of people on the island. She's a smart and cheerful kid. There's a special occasion this evening. 40 years ago today, Janice's first light was lit. Numerous people have gathered around to celebrate, including Hannah and her family. The sight of her shakes Tom, and he barely manages to gather himself before his speech. His speech is surprisingly sad, with Tom detailing the passing of numerous men who have stopped by Janice. His voice is quiet. He almost gives into his guilt and confesses, but he maintains what's left of his composure for his family and for his future. Later, Hannah and her sister Gwen are introduced to Isabel and Lucy. Upon seeing them interact, Tom's eyes immediately fill with panic. Hannah is enamored with Lucy. She can't take her eyes off her. When Tom approaches, she praises the speech he just gave. She also asks him a question. Have any boats been picked up by the ships recently? Have there been any survivors? Tom doesn't answer her question. He simply says that everything is within the realm of possibility when it comes to the sea. Hannah leaves, distraught, and Gwen tells Isabel about Hannah's past. It quickly dawns on Isabel that she just talked to the mother of the child she was holding. The guilt crashes down on her with a quickness, and she falls into a depression. Bill tells Tom that she should stay with her parents for a while, falsely accusing the island for her mental unwellness. Tom joins her in her room. In her distressed state, she tells him it's too late to turn themselves in and admit the truth. Tom insists that they do what's right for Lucy and Hannah. He calls Hannah Lucy's mother, but Isabel insists it's not happening. He has to think about his wife and kid, not some random woman, she says. We're taken to Hannah's house. She's attempting to sleep, but the squeak of her mailbox keeps her up. She's received another package. This time, it holds the owl rattle that Tom found on the boat that day. The trio depart to Janice once again, this time with a cat. It's the only positive element of the ride, given their sullen faces. Hannah turns the rattle in for investigation, and the police promise to follow through with it. They plaster pictures of the rattle all over the town, and Blue Eye manages to see it. He saw the rattle in Lucy's crib when he visited them all those years ago. Tom must have known that he would be caught sooner or later. When the store boat makes its way to Janice a week later, he tells Isabel to follow his lead. He'll turn himself in and say he forced Isabel to follow through with keeping Lucy. She's shocked, to say the least, but she should have known he couldn't keep the facade up for long. Righteousness has always been one of his most sacred values. The store boat carried Sergeant Nucky and one of his men. They're here for Hannah and Frank's daughter. Tom insists that Isabel was kept in the dark about the whole ordeal. As she leaves the two to carry on with the investigation, she plays with Lucy one last time. The child is busy chattering about Tom as Isabel looks at the house, all hope lost. Tom takes the two men to Frank's burial site, after which the family is escorted back to the town. When they make it there, the atmosphere is already bitter. Lucy doesn't understand why her father is being whisked away from her in front of her eyes. She's brought to tears over it, and all Isabel can do is turn her away from the site. At the police station, Lucy has already understood that she'll be separated from Isabel soon. Isabel would do anything not to part with her, but fighting against the arm of the law is useless. Meanwhile, Nucky is investigating Tom. Nucky doesn't believe that Frank wasn't alive when he turned up in the boat. Tom has taken the lives of many Germans like Frank in the war, after all. What's one more body? But Tom insists on the truth, citing his wife as a source. Isabel's composure during her investigation is the polar opposite of Tom's. She's in tears before the questions even begin. At Hannah's house, which is already full to the brim with children's toys and decorations, Lucy is refusing to see Hannah as her mother. The child stomps and cries out for Isabel and Tom, but Hannah can't see past her happiness at finally finding her child. She'll be at a crossroads soon. She can decide to let Lucy be happy with the people who raised her, or she can try and acclimate Lucy to her new life in hopes that she'll eventually be content. Meanwhile, Isabel is in the deepest depression she's been under yet. She'll never forgive Tom for what he's done, for what he's taken from her. In his prison cell, Tom expresses his regret of ever bringing Isabel to the island. Ralph warns him that the police won't be charging him with child stealing. They'll be charging him for taking Frank's life. He has to let go of Isabel unless he wants to put her life in danger, too. But Tom has already accepted his fate. All he wants to do now is protect Isabel. He asks if he can pass along a letter to her. Ralph agrees to do so, but the letter is left unread inside Isabel's dresser. All her love for Tom is gone now. Any ounce of care that's left in her is directed at Lucy, the same Lucy that she comes across at a clothing store. Upon seeing her, the child runs up to Isabel. Hannah is very upset to see it. Swallowing back tears, she tells the girl, calling her Grace, that they have to go. They both call the girl their daughter. Despite the girl showing that her heart lies with Isabel, she's whisked away by Hannah and Gwen. Later, Hannah visits Tom in his cell. She asks him why he kept Lucy to himself, knowing that her mother, or at the very least, family, was probably out there. He says he's sorry for what he did. But he's not asking for forgiveness. She can do whatever she wants to him. But he pleads with her to keep Isabel out of it. She had no choice in the matter, he lies. It's dinner time at Hannah's house, but Grace isn't answering her calls to the table. She's not in her usual hiding spot either. But Grace is not playing hide and seek at all. She's run away, and the police are immediately informed. They search Isabel's house, accusing the family of hiding Grace there. But they're as clueless about the child's whereabouts as the rest of them are. A search party is quickly sent out to find the girl, and Tom hears their calls from his prison cell. Hannah prays that Grace is saved, promising that she'll treat her right. God seems to answer her prayers, because the girl is found just a few hours into their church. As Hannah watches her sleep in the crib, she remembers Frank. She reminisces about his happiness and wishes, his dreams, how glad he was to hold their child in his arms. She clearly loved him, just as she loves Grace. Isabel's mother tells her that Lucy was found. She tries to convince her that Hannah will give the girl a good life, but Isabel can't help but worry. Her mother tells her to focus on Tom, as she's the only one that he has. There's not much time before the judges make their verdict. In the middle of a rainy day, Hannah stops by to talk to Isabel. After exchanging worried glances, Hannah admits that Lucy can live without Hannah, even if Hannah can't live without her. She doesn't want to punish Lucy by keeping her, no matter how much she wants her in her life. She can't punish Isabel for Tom's decisions either. She'll let Isabel have Lucy, so long as she testifies against her husband in court. Isabel is understandably overwhelmed by the bucket of information that was just thrown at her. She'll get to keep her child, only if she condemns her husband to prison, or worse, his demise. She'll give Lucy to her the second he's behind bars, Hannah says. She leaves before Isabel can get a word out. It's the day of the trial. Tom has one last chance to ask for something, but he refuses the offer. Meanwhile, Isabel returns to the letter she left in her dresser all those days ago. Tom poured his heart out in the letter. He expresses everything he's kept locked away, from his love to Isabel, to his guilt at what he did. He's sorry for hurting her, and he's thankful that she gave him one last chance at life when she approached him. Isabel feels the same way, if the way she rushes to the police station is anything to go by. She makes a run for it to the shipping dock, hoping she can still catch him before he sails off. All the luck in the world is on her side, because she makes it just in time. She doesn't just want to say goodbye. She wants to try and salvage the situation. In his arms, she tells the policeman that Frank was indeed not alive when he washed up on that boat. She admits it was her idea to keep the child, with Tom being the one trying to persuade her otherwise. She admits her guilt and Tom's innocence, but it doesn't seem to matter. The sergeant only regards her with pity. When Hannah learns about the events of the day, she finds out that Isabel and Tom will both be put in jail for a long time. But she won't stand for it. Gazing at Frank's portrait, she asks if she can testify on behalf of the pair. It would greatly reduce the length of their sentences. At this point, she stopped believing that Frank's life was taken by Isabel and Tom. She's also forgiven them for taking Lucy and raising her as their own. Perhaps the development happened because of the goodness of her heart. Or maybe it happened because she wishes for her daughter's happiness. She gets along well with her now, but deep down, she knows that she would be happier with the people who raised her. Decades have passed. Isabel lays in bed, sick and old, asking if she's worthy of God's forgiveness. Tom reassures her that God has forgiven her a long time ago. A car pulls up in their driveway, and a young woman exits the car. It's Lucy, and she's got something to show them. She brings Tom her baby, Christopher. Tom breaks the news to her: Isabel has passed away. Lucy is saddened by the news, but she seems to have no regrets about how her life went. She holds no resentment for Isabel and Tom. In fact, she wants to thank him for saving her when she was just a helpless baby. Tom brings her a letter Isabel always wanted her to read. It's a letter Isabel wrote for Lucy. Isabel writes about how difficult it was for her to stay away from Lucy. But now that she's passed, she wants her to know how she truly feels about her. Lucy saved her life when she washed up on the shore on that fateful day. She brought life into her existence that was being shadowed by grief and loss. She'll be forever grateful for the sparse years she spent with her. And she hopes that she spends her life happy, with the knowledge that she will always be loved and watched over by her. Lucy promises they'll visit Tom again. After sharing a hug, Lucy drives away. Tom is left sitting on his porch, watching the sunset. January witnesses the end of the year and the beginning of a new one. Janice witnesses the end and beginning of two oceans. But Tom witnesses the end of Lucy's journey on this earth and the beginning of Christopher's story. He hopes it will be a happy one.